thank you everybody for coming. And spring is here. Lighter and longer and it's raining, so spring's here. We come here every month, so we're not gonna have the chiefs welcome and stuff, because most everybody is familiar with the layout and all that stuff, and with the chief's comments and stuff like that, so we'll dispense with that. Reinstituted in June, July, and August when we're at new facilities, so we're
The chief went home anyways, so.
different sites. Okay, so we can talk about it, is that what you're saying? Okay.
He trusts us.
Yeah, trust, yeah. Presentation tonight, our program is really important in the fact that the King County Chiefs have taken the bull by the horns and looking at restructuring our automatic aid, mutual aid interlocal agreement. And they've got a plan put together, presented it at a couple of their meetings, and they've taken it to the county council, and some of the other cities and stuff are working on getting it adopted. We all of the participants in King County, fire districts, RFAs, and reports and all those guys have to approve it and sign it. And so in that effort to educate us, the policymakers, about what it's all about, we've invited Chief Jeff Clark from Eastside Fire and Rescue, who's kind of the ramrod of this thing, or somebody's been thrown under the bus by.
I'm in position two.
Yeah. And to explain what the ILA is all about, how it works, and stuff like that. So when your chiefs bring it to your board meeting for approval, or review and approval, you have a better understanding what it's all about. So, Chief Clark.
All right, thank you, Mark. Good evening.
Evening.
Thanks for the invite. And what I thought I'd do is just give an overview, and then hopefully there's lots of questions that I can answer for you. I will say that there are a number of agencies, and maybe some of you here, that have already approved the ILA moving forward. But there's going to be a lot of work to do in order to get about 30 agencies in the county to approve this and fulfill the intent of this. So about 18 months ago, King County Chiefs, we had a discussion on really a fire that Seattle had, which was up in the north part of Seattle, where they asked for something called a task force from Zone 1. And I was a new chief in the area at the time. Chief Scoggins was relatively new from Seattle at the time. And we got into a discussion as a group as to what we were doing. What that means from a practical standpoint is that Seattle needed help on a fire. They asked for a strike team or a task force, depending on how they're put together. They're about the same thing. From Zone 1. Well, Zone 1 then assembled 6 engines and 2 ladder companies and a couple of chiefs. And essentially what we did is we went to Bellevue and we stood on a corner with all of our units until we could get all those units there. And then from there, once we assembled all the units, about an hour and a half later, we responded to the fire in Seattle. Okay, and that's the way we've historically done what we call automatic mutual aid between zones. All right, and there's 3 zones in the county. Well, that's highly inefficient, and several of us that had come from outside the Seattle area had fulfilled a career. My time has been in the Phoenix system. Chief Scoggins' time has been in Glendale, California. At the time, Chief Clow was here. He's no longer here. He came from a statewide system in Illinois. And we had Chief Swearinger, who was from the Reno, Nevada area. We all had different versions of automatic aid for what we were used to. So we decided to put a group together at the King County Chiefs to look at this subject. And I've got to give Chief Scoggins props and compliments. And he would have been here tonight had he been able to. He is the current president of King County Chiefs, and he was the chair of the automatic aid committee that worked on this. And so I said I was in position too, because Chief Scoggins really drove this through, especially once we got to the legal piece. But as we started talking about what automatic aid could look like for King County, what our goal was to erase borders when it comes to a response perspective. When somebody calls 911 for help, the goal is to not have a jurisdictional border, not have a zone border, just respond with the closest, most appropriate apparatus to take care of whatever the patient, the fire, whatever it is that is being called for help. Day to day, every call we run. That was the goal of this agreement. Now, in order to get there, when you look at automatic aid agreements around the country, and they are plentiful, there's lots of automatic aid agreements. You need to find a way as an agency to check your ego. All right, it is impossible to put together an agreement where everybody can get what they want. And especially when you start talking about liability, you start talking about costs and resources and everything, if you're looking for a system where, hey, I ran 100 calls into your area and you ran 100 calls into my area, you're not going to find that system. There are going to be imbalances, and those imbalances have to be weighed and measured, and that's of course the fire chief's job to make sure that no one's being taken advantage of. But we wanted to build a safeguard to make sure no one can take advantage, but at the same time, everyone can receive the benefits of an agreement like this. So what we landed on, after many iterations, but I will say is what's got to be record time. 18 months is not that long to get this done. But after many iterations, what we landed on was a agreement that this agreement does not have any money changing hands. All right. It doesn't have any resources that are being purchased or bought by any entity in the name of somebody else. It is simply looking at our response system and saying that if I sign on to that agreement as an agency, if I sign on, I am agreeing that when I'm able to, I am sending resources automatically. All right, as soon as the dispatcher sends me, if they send me to North Seattle tomorrow from City of Issaquah, my engine companies are responding, no questions asked. They're responding to that incident on that tactical channel, and we're responding directly to the incident to get there as soon as we can get there. All right. If in a perfect world, when I'm coming back from Harborview Hospital, one of my engine companies is coming back, and we're driving through Mercer Island, and we're closer to a call in Mercer Island by AVL, the automatic vehicle locator system. The dispatch would ping it and recognize that my fire engine is closer than any Mercer Island unit at that time, and would send me to the emergency, and vice versa. It would happen seamlessly. All right. So this agreement says that the fire chiefs. Well, let's start with the governance, the governance was originally intended that the King County Fire Chiefs, your representatives at King County Fire Chiefs, and that they be the fire chief of the department, sits, and as a group, as a collective, all of us that have signed on, we would govern and administer the issues as they come up in line with what the agreement is. We meet every other month right now. We meet every other month as it is, and we simply manage it. And it's a model that is used around the country. All right. We added late in the process. We added an administrative team that has the chief or a representative from Zone 5, which is Seattle, a representative from Zone 1, who's elected by the other fire chiefs in there, and a representative from Zone 3. All right, those three individuals will administer the issues as it pertains to the agreement for everybody that's signed on to that. They do not have some ability, and if they're going to vote somebody off the island, there's somebody who's not playing nice with others or taking advantage of the system, then it needs to go to the body of a whole, and 2/3 majority vote needs to take place in order to do something drastic like that. All right? But the intent of the administrative team is not so much voting somebody off the island as it is administering the day-to-day process and making sure that when issues arise, that we're getting in a room, we're checking those egos at the door, we're sitting down and we're rationally talking through whatever those issues are, and we're keeping everybody moving forward. All right? The idea behind automatic aid is best implemented when all of the dispatch centers are linked together. And we have 3 dispatch centers, of course, Seattle, Valleycom, and Norcom, that dispatch fire resources. The best version of a system would have all of us being dispatched under the same protocols seamlessly among the dispatch centers. Around the country, dispatch centers do link electronically and automatically dispatch each other's resources. The technology's out there. The capability is out there. And we're not that far in some parts of King County to getting that. Okay, so ultimately that's a longer term goal. That does not need to be in place for the automatic aid agreement to take place. But the intent is that if, in my jurisdiction, I could be closer to a Zone 3 call, or there could be a Zone 3 resource that is closer to a call in my service area. But because our dispatch centers don't communicate, we never send those resources that way. Valleycom will send the resource that's closest in the Valleycom system, even if I have a resource closer, and so will Norcom on my side. The idea behind automatic gate is that if Valleycom and Norcom are linked electronically, it doesn't matter where the 911 call comes in, when that address comes in, if my unit's closer, even though it's in the Valleycom area, I respond, and vice versa, okay? That's the bigger vision, and that's where we get down the road, all right? But the intent is there. What our governing board will do is administer through that process. Now, there's a couple of safeguards in the agreement, and I had a conversation with some representatives from one of the jurisdictions in our zone who misinterpreted a piece of the automatic gate agreement. There's a clause in there that says that the resources you come into the system with, essentially, it can be interpreted this way. The resources you come into the system with, you have to maintain. All right? The intent behind that clause is if I have 9 career stations, like I do today, and they're all staffed 24/7, 365, conceivably, once I get the automatic gate agreement up and running, let's say I get creative and I notice that there's a Bellevue engine that serves a large part of where one of my engines serves. And if I close my engine down and I save a couple $1 million a year, and because we have this automatic gate agreement, the Bellevue engine can handle that now, all right, why don't I just do that? That's a good financial decision, right? Well, no. That's the clause in this agreement is that you can't game the system that way. Now, what I experienced in Arizona once we hit the recession was exactly that. We had a couple of cities who decided they forced their chief to put close a station down because they knew they were in the automatic gate agreement. We hadn't faced that before until we got to the recession. Chief Scoggins in California had a similar experience in his automatic gate system. The reason we put that clause in there was to prevent gaming of the system. Not, as an agency in Zone 1 interpreted, not to tell you, the agency, what your staffing levels have to be or what stations or where your stations are. We're not in that business, okay? What we are is saying from a playing field, from equity, that if you do close a station that puts an impact on your neighbor, all right, there's a discussion that needs to be had there, and the financial implication from that is not just for you to gain from, all right, and that would be something that maybe you do get voted off the island when the chiefs talk it through. After the administrators have talked through all of it, talked with you, I don't anticipate that, especially when times are good. It's just at least 2 of us in the room had experience during bad times where we needed to have a clause like that. It does say, if any of you have volunteers, and this has been a point of discussion in several meetings I've been at, if you have volunteers, automatic gate is designed and can only fully operate when it's 24/7, 365, and that's from a staffing perspective. If your unit is staffed 24/7, 365 with personnel in the station, then it qualifies to be part of the automatic gate system, and the dispatch centers will recognize it as such. But if you're running a volunteer system where your responders are coming from home, or they're responding to the incident, they're still going to be responding to the incident. I have volunteers at each side. They're still going to be responding to the incident, but my volunteer stations are not part of the automatic gate system. The automatic gate system is built around the predication that we have staffing 24/7, 365, that it's reliable. And the next piece is that we are all trained in a similar fashion. We all have similar certifications and similar capabilities from the engines and the ladders and the 8 cars that we operate. Right? All of those are essential. It doesn't say identical, but with the Zone 3 consortium and the training standards that are going on down there, the Zone 1 consortium and the training standards there, Seattle's training standards, and then all of us in between that are not part of one of those training consortiums, but we are adhering to the King County model procedures. We're not all doing it exactly the same way, but we're using that King County model procedure as a connection to the kind of incident command that we're running, the direction that we're heading from a capability standpoint with the resources on the vehicles. What will come up within the fire chiefs' discussions and with the discussions with their ops chiefs, which becomes contentious potentially, and there's a clause in the agreement that addresses this, is authority having jurisdiction. So let's say I respond into Bellevue and I'm a battalion chief with East Side, and I get on scene of a working fire, a confirmed fire. When I get on scene, I take command as an East Side battalion chief in Bellevue. All right, I have command from an operational standpoint moving forward. When a Bellevue officer gets there, it's his jurisdiction. All right, he or she can decide at that point whether or not command is moving in a good direction, whether I'm comfortable with how this call is going. Maybe I'm gonna leave command with the officer that started it, which, from a safety standpoint, from a practical standpoint, is the best thing to do, all right? However, the authority having jurisdiction always retains the right at any time to take over that incident in a structured manner, with the right protocols, to take over that incident, all right? In a mature automatic age system, you will find that as we get down the road, that whoever initially takes command will maintain command, even though it's in another jurisdiction. Once we get training, we get that comfort level up, and we understand that we're all operating, and you know, although we might have a million different ways to do it, we all get the fire out, we all get the folks to the hospital, we all do a good job, all right? It's just a matter of getting on the same page and getting comfortable with it. So, where I know it's to be at this point is there's at least a half dozen agencies that have signed the agreement, and we're moving in that direction. We've asked your fire chiefs, in February, I believe it was, we passed the agreement and approved it to form. We've asked your fire chiefs to go back to their governing bodies and over the course of this year, get those agreements signed. We are also, in each zone, we have asked a different entity to establish a tracking mechanism so we can see what everyone's intention is. What we are asking is that if you're not going to sign it, just let us know. And that's what we've asked through your fire chief. We're hoping we can get everyone there. If we need to have more dialogue at an individual agency, there's a contingency of us that would love to come down and have a conversation and get everybody at ease with what we're trying to accomplish. All right. The one other big thing that comes with this is renumbering. All right. And in order to do an automatic aid program properly, is we have to get rid of confusion about the numbering of units. And in my first week here, just about 2 years ago, I went to a structure fire in my southern part of my district, and I have an Engine 81 who was on scene, and then Maple Valley had an Engine 81 who was on scene, and Snoqualmie had an Engine 281. And as long as they remember to say the two, I knew that. But as I was coming in, brand new, listening to the radio, I'm thinking, I have 3 Engine 81s on the scene, or do I just have 3 people from Engine 81 with different voices talking on the radio? I didn't know what was going on. It was very confusing. Now, granted, the people in the system understood it a little better. So, but what we've done, and again, we're asking that everybody renumber their units by January 1st of 2019. We completely understand that some entities are not going to have the renumbering process completed by then. Again, this is something that we understand there's a financial impact to that. It's going to take time. All that we're asking is that your agencies are communicating what your timeline is for it. If it's going to take you 2 years, fine, it's going to take you 2 years. Let's just let everybody know about it. The renumbering went out and was adopted at the same time as the automatic aid. For most of us in the system, we simply, if you're in zone 1, you had a 1 put in front of every one of your units. So that 81 that I did have is 181 now. For zone 3, they had a 3 put in front of it. So that Maple Valley Engine 81 is now Engine 381 at all times. And that way there's no confusion. We did have an antiquated rule on the book that if you went between zones, you were supposed to add those numbers in front of your units. But being on the border of a zone, the fact of the matter is it didn't happen. Functionally, company officers did not remember to do that back and forth. So there is some expense on that side, on that part of things, but hopefully with plenty of time to plan for those expenses and move them in over time, agencies will be able to do that without too much cost or trouble moving forward. And my understanding is in King County, we've attempted to renumber the entire county into one system several times in the past. It's just we've never been able to pull the trigger completely on it. Hopefully this is one that will stick along with the automatic aid. As you can imagine, if we have get to the point where we can link these dispatch centers, even linking them, it doesn't help if they both have redundant numbers. They can only recognize a unique number configuration. So we've got to get to the point where we have that accomplished. And it's more important at dispatch that it occur than it does on what's on the side of the vehicles. Our personnel that are in the streets that respond with each other, they can tell pretty much by looking at an engine or ladder which engine or ladder company that is. They don't really need to look at the number. But in time, we'll get to the point where everybody is numbered. So that was a rapid overview of it. I think I hit most of the tenets. If I forgot something, I'll bank on your questions getting me there. Anything I can answer for you?
So, a question on staffing.
Yes, sir.
Some companies are 3, some are 4, some are 2. Is that gonna be an issue?
So, the baseline staffing is 3 is what is accepted as a 24/7. Now, if it's an 80 unit, obviously it's 2. But generally speaking, 3 is the staffing that all this was built around. And if you have more than that, fine. If you have less than that, you probably, and again, I don't think we've really vetted this one, but that's a great topic for the administrative board once we get going, is whether or not another company on certain call types needs to go along with it. But we want to get a resource there, obviously, and if there's 2 responders, we still want them there. And if they need help, we just need to get help from another unit coming. Okay, there was another one over here. Yes.
So if you have 2 on your engine and then you have volunteers that work those same shifts side by side, that won't be the intent, you don't want volunteers?
No, that would meet the intent. So I'll give you an example in Falls City and see if I'm saying the same thing you are. Falls City, they have 3-person career staffing during the day, and then at night, oftentimes, one of the career goes home and a volunteer comes in and spends the night. But because the volunteer is there in the station, available to respond, they have 3 people on the engine,
Okay,
that fully qualifies. Okay?
yeah, that's what I wasn't clear with.
Yes. Yeah, and that actually happens throughout the county.
That works for us then.
Trucks are still 3.
Trucks are 3. Yeah, we're not trying to govern staffing. So the Seattle system, I think, has a lot of 4-person vehicles.
They're all 4-person.
They're all 4-person. So that's great. It would be great if we were all 4-person across it, but that's the staffing there. 3-person is the standard everywhere else in the county. Yes, sir.
Chief, can you discuss how the administrative board will set this up? And don't they have to agree on some areas to program the computers, basically? The old run card system, we call it the run cards, but won't the administrative board have to meet and decide which exact units will respond in which precise areas and then program the computers?
So, without getting into too many details, because I don't know them, the administrative board is going to have to get together and agree on what dispatch protocols they are. I will say that our operations chiefs have been working on that for 2 years now, and they have been getting ready for this. All right, what we are trying to get away from, using the example of East Side again, because it's what I know, there is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 run cards in my jurisdiction. That means 10,000 different ways to address a call. All right, that is a very antiquated way to respond to emergencies. A house fire here at this address versus a house fire 2 miles away at this address is going to take the same number of resources. Rather than have separate run cards for each, just give me the 2 closest engines, the 2 closest ladders, if that's what we're going to do as a system. Send them to me here and send them to me here. Okay. Now the Valleycom system doesn't have ABL currently, and that makes it more difficult to figure out a system without run cards. All right. But Norcom and Seattle do run with ABL, and you can do a system there without run cards. So certainly one of the things that will be discussed at the administrative level is when we get there, and again, we're not looking for this dispatch connection early on. It's going to take some time to build it, but it's to get to one convention of what is an initial response to a working structure fire, what is a first alarm, a second alarm, a third alarm. The operations chiefs have already addressed those. We already have them identified on what a standard first alarm, second alarm. They haven't been implemented, but they've been talking for some time about this. This isn't a new idea that just came up and we put it on paper. We first made sure that we have all the support mechanisms coming forward with that as well. All right, understanding that the dispatch centers will be lagging but we have to be able to give the vision to a dispatch center for them to be able to understand what it is we're trying to ask them to do, and that vision's been created and is moving forward. That answer your question, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
One of them is, what are your standards for renumbering vehicles? Is there a specific, it must be like this?
Yeah, there's actually a spreadsheet that we put together. We put together a work group on renumbering of fire chiefs with representatives from everywhere, and we said, here is the number you go to. All right, now we are not dictating, the size of the letters, where they have to be on the apparatus. However you number your apparatus is just fine with us. It's just instead of being 81, you're now 181, or in your case, you'll be 370. I think you guys have some 70s there, right?
All 70s.
Right, so you'll be 370, 371. How you number it is up to you. How the numbers look, the size of the numbers, that's up to you and whatever your agency does. We've just simply put together a spreadsheet and we've assigned a number range to every jurisdiction in King County. And we've talked through the chiefs to say, all right, how many stations do you think you could get to? So an agency the size of Puget Sound has a range and has some extra room in there. Some of the smaller agencies like Fall City that's never gonna have another station, they were just assigned one number. So, and that was to the extent that we went with
It's
them.
pretty easy, 'cause it's, you know.
Yeah, we didn't wanna make it too complicated, and we're trying not to put requirements on anyone, we're trying to leave our goal here is to simply best serve the customer and take away that address, and again, checking our egos at the door so we're actually delivering that service, and don't let money, agreements, the fine print get in the way of what we're trying to accomplish here. The intent here is nothing but service. That's what we want to improve here, and we don't want to be a burden to anyone, and we want it to be fair. And I'm really proud of the group of chiefs that all of you have hired, and the 30 folks we've put in the room, because we were able to check our egos and get to this point, and hopefully we'll see that all the way through and not get in our own way. Because the only thing that's gonna stop the agreement from going is us getting in our own way, you know, and that really is the intent, is to serve a little better than what we're doing now.
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
This has to do with an operations issue, and it's water supply. So, in the city of Kent, there was a discovery that there were threads on sewer ports
Yeah.
that were different. And it took a number of years and a fair amount of money to change everything over to storage settings so that it doesn't matter what was on there,
Mhm.
now it'll work with what we have.
Good for you.
How does that work around, because I mean, I'll go into Maple Valley and I'll see the fittings are the same where I live because our area was annexed from there in the city of Concord. So it's the same, so we've done the best possible to keep it like that.
Right.
What's it like? Because I still, when I drive around, I look at hydrants,
Right.
I do, and some of them have, you know, they're just sitting there overgrown, and other ones, there's no storage or anything on them. So what's the plan for that?
So, it's not addressed in the automatic aid agreement, all right? I do think it's something we need to work on to
Yeah.
just have one standard countywide would be great. It's ambitious, because there's a lot of hydrants here. One of the saddest, I guess that's the way I describe it, things that I saw, when I first arrived here, I went to a recruit academy, and I was watching, these new young firefighters take a hydrant. This is in the Zone 1 package that we put together. And this poor recruit gets off the back of the engine, grabs the steamer, and then grabs a bag that is about the size of a piece of luggage that you pull out from the airport. And he's running down, pulling 200 feet of 5-inch, running to get to the hydrant, lays it down. I look over at my ops chief, I'm doing the chief thing, right? What's this? So I lean over to the ops chief and said, what in the world is the bag? He said, oh, that's all of our hydrant fittings.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what the hydrant's gonna have, right? So what you're describing, then I watch this poor kid, he gets down there, unzips the bag, and he opens up, and all these fittings come flying out. And he's looking at the hydrant, and he's doing this to figure out which one. It's a terrible time either. If we can convert them all to storks, that's the way to go. It takes money and time to get there, as you're describing, and I hope we can all get there someday. I've got 190 square miles in my agency, and every hydrant, I think I was told 13 water systems, and every water system has just whatever hydrants they got on sale or the threads on it. There's never been a standard for them,
Because
so.
those the people that work there, they never use the main one. They use the side ones for
Right.
construction work or whatever else. No,
Yeah.
and so at least it's, you know, in the areas where mutual aid is most likely, that's certainly something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, and now, in the system I came from, we addressed that, as progressive as you might hear years ago about how, the city of Phoenix, Fire Department is, which is a great department, overbilled in some areas, and I'm on camera, I know I said that, and the chief will hear me say it, and she'll give me a call, and we'll talk about it, but she knows what I mean. But they have their own standard thread that they built, and so the whole city of Phoenix Fire purchased and spec'd out hydrants for the city of Phoenix, but no one else could have it. So even in that robust system, we couldn't match hydrants because they had to have their own. And that's the egos of the past. And they started that decades ago before automatic aid. And now that automatic aid's there, we wish that we didn't have an engineer compartment that was full of all these adapters, because in the perfect world, we all get to the same one. So it will be an operational issue, especially for us on the borders, where we're gonna go into different areas. I'm confident that my units have those bags. It's gotta be able to fit every hydrant in the world. There can't be another version of it.
For the guys, that's just a headache.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Did you have another question?
That's it, that's it.
All right.
Chief, I've got an observation and then a question that you may or may not want to touch. The observation is that one of my commissioners on my board is a firefighter from North Shore Fire. and the fire you're describing, they were tagged for the task force, Engine 57.
Yes.
They pulled out under their apron, looked to see if traffic was clear,
Mhm.
and now they've got to go left. I don't know if any of you know where, they're at Lake Forest Park. To get to Bellevue, they've got to go left on Bothell Way over a 405 and down 405 to meet the rest of the task force. They look left, traffic's clear, look right, traffic is clear, and the next line was, oh my God, look at the thermal column. They were 14 blocks from the fire, had to travel 6 miles to get to the task force location before they could go there. This is what this will fix.
Absolutely.
And it's a great step forward. The question is, you were talking about between zone 1 and zone 3, maybe some of the border problems we potentially have had in the past that will be eliminated on this. We're up on the Snohomish County border. Has there been any discussion with the Snohomish County chiefs to adopt a similar program to smooth these boundary border issues out even further?
I can only guess that there's been discussion between the chiefs that border it about it. What I do know we've discussed is that if we can get our act in order, that absolutely Pierce and Snohomish counties we need to go talk to. And Snohomish does a version of this within their county, and they're working on something similar. I believe they're down to 1 dispatch center. I could be wrong on that, but that's an advantage if they are. And in the perfect world, it would be as simple as connecting their dispatch center to our conglomeration of dispatch centers when we get to that point. But I do know on the numbering side, we did take care of numbering, and we did consult the border agencies when we were determining, and Greg helped us with that as far as determining what numbers to do.
Okay.
Absolutely. There's no reason to stop at the borders once you get this right. And that would be the same thing on the south, is if there's a Pierce County unit that's closer, that's capable of training, I don't know why you want your residents waiting any longer for the help. Anything else? Number 2?
One comment, not a question. I just wanted to thank Chief Scoggins for his temerity to stick to the program and get this thing done. I looked at this fairly late, really moved on a really substantively looked at it. It was in February for 6 different fire districts or regional fire authorities in King County. And I had a lot of things that I suggested he change. We sat down for a good hour and a half and hammered it out, and he was really, I think he was really receptive to our concerns. And I think we ended up with a better agreement because of that. And I just really laud his flexibility on getting this thing done.
Yeah, he's been a great leader on this initiative, and I appreciate you saying that. And I'll be sure, if he does this watch it, I'll be sure to pass that on to him. And you know, it would to further on those comments a little bit, it's, you know, no matter how hard we try, Seattle's the biggest player in this county, and is going to be. We need Seattle's leadership, and fortunately Harold has brought that to the table, and he has put it in play, and we're moving in that direction. Because all of us are stronger together, and he definitely practices that, and he's pushing forward with this. And you know, I heard on the renumbering thing, we didn't renumber Seattle, okay? Because Seattle has the most units, and they've already got the numbers 1 through, well, now they have the bank 1 through 100, or 99, I guess, is theirs. And I believe that's how it should be. And, you know, I got a couple of complaints from a couple of agencies that had to change their numbers and said, well, how come Seattle didn't have to change anything? Well, let me tell you, they're the largest agency. They have the heaviest lift to do anything internally, and we have the most to gain from having the large player that is Seattle in play in this agreement. We have the most to gain from them. So where we can make it easier on them, we need to make it easier on them. All right, it doesn't mean it's an easy lift for anybody, but the last thing that Seattle has is an easy lift. All right, they're leading from the front. They're doing great things, and we should all look. It was already mentioned, they've got 4-person staffing. We'd all love to have 4-person staffing from an operational perspective, from a budget perspective. How in the world do we do that, right? But they've got it. And if we need something in East Side, I know through this agreement that Seattle will be there. How can I ask for anything more than that? So I do appreciate you saying that, and it has been his leadership that's helped grind it, and it's certainly, and I got to give credit to all the chiefs on this one, it's certainly how we got here in 18 months. Is the fact that we were willing to have those conversations, even some of the late conversations. And obviously you didn't have a bunch of egos at the table if you were able to do it in one meeting. It was sit down, what are the real issues here, and let's get to an answer, and let's get moving forward. Did you have your hand? sorry.
Yeah, so, you know, you're just kind of talking about the heavy lift within the city. And I too want to echo the sentiments of, great thanks to Chief Goggins for bringing this forward and doing the heavy lifting on this. I know that it's not always been a popular idea within, his organization. But with that said, is there, I'm assuming there's full commitment from the city governance, the council, the mayor's office, to move forward with this, but also below the chief, amongst, his
Right.
his crews, because as recently as in the last 3 months, we've sat down with some assistant chiefs in Seattle who
Right.
basically said, not gonna happen, this is, and so
So-
we're kind of hearing two stories.
Yeah, and I get it, and the last thing, I can't answer for Chief Scoggins on that, but I can answer from a fire chief's perspective. All right, I can tell you what he said. They have not adopted the policy. He's rolling up his sleeves and now he's going to work. I know enough about him that he hasn't not talked about this over the last 18 months, and he's not committing. I know that his attorney's office has been wrapped in, and I'm sure he's working the politics. I have all the faith in the world that he is. Now, on the firefighter side, and that goes, when I say firefighter, I mean fire chief, assistant chief, deputy chief, and everything else. Nobody changes better, right, than fire. There's a lot of culture, not just in Seattle, but in all of our agencies. I have people in my own agency right now that if you went and met one-on-one with them, they would say, oh, there's no way we're going to be doing this. All right, well, we've already signed it, we're doing it, we're moving forward, and sometimes there's some late adopters. They'll get there, all right? And I'm gonna smile, I'm gonna give them a hug if they need one, and we're gonna get there, and I'm gonna give them a kick in the pants if they need another one. I'm confident he's gonna get there, but keep in mind too, the larger the agency, the longer it's going to take to get that cultural change. I will say this about Seattle. I've got a Seattle deputy chief and a Seattle captain that are on my District 38 board. All right, they have both conveyed to me stories that they've had about seeing a thermal column outside of Seattle, sitting in their engine waiting to assemble a Seattle task force, all right, or strike team to respond, and their frustration level of not being able to respond. The fire is right there. If we would have left 5 minutes ago, we could make a difference on this thing, but they weren't permitted because of the system that we all had in place. They've had the same stories, and at least I can tell you from the deputy chief and the captain that sit on my board, they're fully embracing it, and what they tell me is that absolutely this is being talked about, but you're talking about 11, 12, 13, 1,400 firefighters there. It's going to take a while, but the policies and everything else, I'm confident that when and if, I believe it will be when he gets it signed, that yeah, they'll have the buy-in moving forward. There hasn't been a bigger cheerleader, so I'm confident that it's moving forward, and he understands how to get it done. It'll probably take some time, but we're not in a hurry on this. We've got a game plan, and we're all here to support each other, and we'll help out where we can. In the meantime, if the rest of the county got it signed, that makes it easier. Every time you get someone else to sign, it makes it easier for your neighbors to move forward and see the acceptance level of where we're going, and that we're committed. And one of the things the contracts, or the ILA says that once there are two parties, that it goes into effect. Well, let's say it's east side to South King. It doesn't help a whole bit if we're the two that are signed. There's a little bit of distance between us. Might help on a big one, but it's really once you get some neighboring communities going, then you're going to start to see the full effect of it, and or once a zone gets completed, something like that. But we're definitely held there, and I would say that the commitment that I feel in the room from the chiefs that take part, and I don't know, hopefully all your chiefs make the King County Chiefs meeting. If they don't, I would strongly encourage you to move it. There is a new brand of the King County Fire Chiefs right now. We're tackling some big issues, and it's too bad when a department's not represented. Now, most of the patches and things I see on your sleeves here, I see your chiefs, and they're heavily involved with King County Chiefs. But there are agencies that don't show up, and it's a lot of news when, hey, there's an automatic gate agreement out now. What do you mean? I haven't heard anything about that. Well, we've been working on it for 18 months, and now it's moving forward. So you got to be there, you got to be present in order to know what's going on.
Chief, I know in our zone that Shoreline and Duval share the same block 10 numbers.
Mm-hmm.
How was that resolved?
I don't remember. They're not the same numbers anymore. I know that. I think in their case, we actually left them in the same block because Shoreline will never need to. Neither one will ever need to hold the whole block.
Okay.
So, but everybody, we had a. I was the chair of that committee, and I definitely had some typos and renumberings. It took some phone calls. As of right now, it's been a good solid 6 weeks that I haven't received a complaint about.
I've been like your phone back.
Yeah. I had a few where it was something like this. Hey, chief, oh. Okay, you're adding a one, okay. Not me, it's all of us. Sometimes it's hard.
One of the things I've noticed the last couple of years, that certain water purveyors that seem to think that they need to put security caps on the operating hydrants and stuff like that, and it's not consistent.
Right.
And we got companies responding in, how do we address that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, but, you know, there perhaps could be a day, once we get to where we tackle this hydrant issue, where maybe it's this body meeting with the water commissioners who are out there, and I know I've met with several of our boards, but maybe it's a group from this body, a group from them, sitting down, maybe we can create a standard, you know, where we can get down. I'm sure it's about money for them, maybe some culture, but it would sure be nice to get there. But especially on security, because that's something you can take off and put a different brand on fairly inexpensively.
Well, and the thing is that if one water district's using this brand and another water district on the other side of your fire district is using a different brand, they got another set of wrenches or keys or whatever to access it.
Both, yeah.
No, it's, they're
They're virtually impossible to
Yeah,
catch with a boat.
kind of like a Knox box that fits on the top.
Yeah, there's a magnet system, and then there's a star magnet system and a square magnet system. There's so many systems.
Yeah.
It's definitely not uniform.
Sledgehammers then.
Mark,
Bigger ones.
I attended a water district meeting in Covington. One of the commissioners said, so you guys are telling me you're gonna spend like $500,000 to put these locks on hydrants because you're worried about 10,000 gallons of water. That's what he said to them. He said, you guys are crazy. That's a cultural thing, because he was not from the industry. He said, you guys are crazy. 10,000 gallons of water, now you're gonna spend $500,000 on stuff.
Well, one of the water district guys that I talked to when I first saw him, and he says, well, it's a homeland security issue, is that poisoning of the water system.
Oh, good.
You know, you gotta open the valve, open the nut to get the water, but how you gonna get the bad stuff in there because it's gonna be coming out?
You have to have a stronger pump.
Yeah,
Override.
a lot of weird things.
So, Chief, and this goes to kind of the operations chiefs, but since you have one, you probably know a little bit about this. How long will it take us as a county to get to a standardized fire engine where the blue sky hooks are all kept in the same engineer's cabinet?
Yeah. You know, I know that Zone 1 attempted that before I got here, and there's some of us, and well, Woodinville and Eastside, I know bought the standard. I don't know. I can tell you from working in an automatic gauge system for 25 years, where that was our goal, and the entire 25 years we were in the automatic gauge system, and it started about 5 years before I got there. To this day, they don't have a standardized system like that. I think getting into the details of that is just, I'm not sure it's worth the energy. You know, it's something that's worth having a conversation, but when it actually gets to it, and you have to purchase and independence of some departments, I don't know how much energy I personally would spend on it, just based on my experience. The fires still went out, and I've seen plenty of firefighters laughing at neighboring jurisdictions' engine, opening every cabinet, looking for whatever he's looking for. But most firefighters, most of us know that, hey, that happens sometimes, and you know, and when you're trying to do that, I like the roll-up doors a lot better than the bifold doors, because it's just easier to open them and run around and find it. But
It's not as obvious as you're.
exactly, yeah. Well, you know, what I was told in recruit school, right, maybe you too, is, you know, well, if you're gonna open all the cabinets, pull something out of each cabinet, right? So the first fire, when I'm looking for something, I don't know where it is. You know, before you know it, I got 5 tools, and I show up with a pipe pull for my captain. He goes, what the heck's all the rest of that stuff? Just, I took something out of every cabinet, you know? But after a while, you learn that. So I don't know. I don't think it's realistic, though, to think that we're gonna get there, and it's just, there's too many variables on that.
How, in your past experience in your district, how did anybody get any closer? Were there?
Well, yeah, certainly agencies. I mean, even agencies. At least, you know, Phoenix has 60 companies or 60 stations. You know, their engines are set up the same. My engines in Chandler were set up the same. When I first got there, they weren't, you know, so, and then you'd find neighbors that would do the same. So you'd have pockets where it's all relatively close, but just getting to the exact same standard. You know, I think we'll naturally migrate there. The more you run with a neighboring company, the more you tend to, you take the best from each other and set your engines up that way. There's a reason the engine's set up the way it is, and usually, and probably the way it should be, is it's the preference of how the firefighters can best perform. And if it's set up the way they're liking, I mean, as a chief, I don't want to dictate how it's set up, but they're the ones using it. But let them set it up, and once they start responding with their neighbors, they find out, hey, you know what, I kind of like how the axes are installed over here, so why don't we change that? And before you know it, it kind of migrates there on its own. At least the stuff that's important. Right.
I was watching crew transfer from an old engine to one of our 4 new engines, and I was quite, well, where do we put this? Well, let's put it here.
A lot of science to it.
Yeah, we'll figure this out later.
But, you know, we just put 3 new engines into service, and that's exactly what happened. The crews came down there with our mechanics, and the mechanics put the brackets where they wanted them. So, yeah, I'm good with that person.
Yeah, our crews loaded and unloaded the engines, I think 4 times in 1 week,
Yeah.
until they figured out but what they also found was, hey, you guys have 4 of those, and I've only got 2.
Let's balance it out.
Yeah, so they got a lot of that fixed too. And training is working its way to get as standardized as training.
So we have King County model procedures, and I'll say we are solid around King County model procedures. Zone 1, we have some issues going on right now in training that we're talking through, that we've got to get on the same page, and we're all working hard. Zone 3, the consortium side of Zone 3, they have a task manual that is tied directly to the King County model procedures. And then I know there are agencies not part of the consortium, but I am confident that everyone understands King County model procedures, and we need to tie into it. In my perfect world, I don't really care who trains who, but that we all agree to one model procedure and one task manual. The task manual is the basic training manual that kind of mobilizes the model procedures, right? So we're not there because there's probably a half dozen task manuals in the county right now. And you know, it's interesting when you look at it. Like I said earlier, all fires go out, and you'd think we could all get on the same page of training. But something simple like when you put up an extension ladder, is the fly in or out? Those are the differences we have in the task manual right now. Is it a pre-connected hose line or a bulk load? And in my world, a firefighter should be able to pull a pre-connect or a bulk load. It shouldn't be that divisive. Let's just put them both in the task manual, and whatever one you encounter, you're prepared for. But it's things like that that get in our way, and that's where ego, hopefully going through the automatic aid process, is we learn how to check our egos a little bit, and hopefully it can get down to the task manual. And we're getting there. And there's been a lot of progress. I'm very confident we're going to get there when it's all said and done, but we still have a few more growing pains to do on that one. I mean, we still have, Bellevue still uses wood ladders. No one else uses wood ladders. I mean, so there's differences when you're playing.
So we're all gonna go out and buy $1 million worth of.
I'm not buying wood ladders.
Okay.
I got one last question. With the advent of drones being deployed and stuff like that, I was noticing the other night, there was an incident, and the drone was up, taking pictures and stuff, and he had no idea, the incident commander is looking at his laptop, at the picture and stuff like that. How do you tell what apparatus is what that's in this picture?
Right.
Because there's no indicators on the top that you read.
Oh, really? So I know our units have them. I kind of assumed that everybody did, but our units do have them. And I guess you never get that bird's eye view. But drones, the operations chiefs in Zone 1 are, we do have a contract with a drone operator that we are beta testing right now. We do have interested operators to respond out to our incidents and fly, not the drone you buy from Walmart for $199, but the high dollar drone with the high dollar cameras on them to come out. We're actually using the East Side for trail rescues. We're using them to go up ahead of us, find the victim, and spot exactly how far they are with GPS. And we're also having, this entity is interested in responding out to our fire. So we're testing it in Zone 1 with a few agencies. And I know that Zone 3 has been doing some things with drones too, but they're coming. And it's just a matter of how to deploy them. I personally would like to see it to where we have some operators like the individual that we found as a professional drone operator, rather than trying to train our personnel. We need our personnel hands-on. The drone operator stuff is is a little bit more complicated, and I think there's a lot of folks that can do it for us. It's just a matter of whether or not they can get out there quick enough, you know, to get there. But it's definitely gonna be a great.
Is that something, because 18 months ago, drones really weren't on the horizon.
Right.
They were fun toys.
Right.
Yeah, but now they're an integral part of,
They're
many
getting-
cops are using them
Yeah.
for scene mapping and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So maybe, would that be something, an addendum to the ILA or something?
Could be.
That would encourage people to put their numbers on the top?
Yes.
Because then, there was some, in another news feed I saw, the 8 car was numbered, and the medic unit was numbered. So you knew what they were moving around, but you knew what they were when you looked at them. But with the engines and ladders and stuff like that, you have no idea.
Well, we have a meeting next Wednesday. I think I'll poll the group to see how many agencies do and do not, and I think that is a good point. 'Cause-
Because if you're renumbered anyway,
Right.
you gotta buy a 1 or a 3.
Put it, yeah, put it on the top. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. So that might change the answer I gave you. We might have a requirement, maybe put something on the top
But if there's
here.
nothing there already,
Yeah,
then you have
Yes.
to change something, right?
right. Well, you guys just went through renumbering and
Or- Yeah,
kind of refacing your organization.
well, we have to rebrand.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, understand.
I have one question for you. How do you feel that chiefs from out of the area coming into King County have really benefited the progress?
Wow, that's self-story, because I came from out of the county, so.
Called softball.
Well, it's a softball, but it's also, I'm on camera, so all of my fellow local chiefs.
We got your back,
You know, here's the most honest way I could answer it, is that at least from my perspective, coming in was very well received from all of the local chiefs. And I think that the local chiefs have opened up their perspectives from what they're hearing. And, you know, I don't know, I'd have to do a quick count. There's almost as many outside chiefs now as there are local chiefs. And I do think it is changing the way that we conduct ourselves here. Not better or worse, just simply different, because they're different perspectives. The good news is that I really appreciate, because coming up here, you know, I lifted up my family and I came up here for a big change that I was excited about, but also nervous about, was how well will it be expected or embraced and appreciated. And I do think that the chiefs here are getting along pretty well. We all have our differences, but embracing moving forward. You know, I've had the opportunity to work with Matt a few times now. He's on the board with us now. I'm on the board. When you look at the executive board for King County Chiefs, it's there's 5 of us, at least 3 of us. I'm trying to think or maybe there's just, and then Matt. So there's 3 of us from the outside, and we've all got here in the last 3 years. And then Heitman and Cowan is the rest of the group who they've both been here for their entire career. So they're voting us into the leadership positions, you know, so we're having a say. And because of that, and most of us that came from the outside, for some reason, we're not shy about sharing our opinion. And there's good and bad to that. But I do think it's created a culture of talking a little bit more, because there is a propensity here for people not to necessarily give their opinion in a group, which is much different than what I'm used to in the Phoenix system. And that's coming around, and you know, it's okay to have a different view, and it's okay to lose a discussion. It's just a discussion, it's not personal. So, but I think sometimes, especially early on, some things got taken personal that there was no need for it. Yeah, but I think it's good. I think it's good. You guys are all doing a good job picking chiefs.
Got to keep the eye on the prize.
That's right.
Moving forward.
Moving forward.
You know, in the past, we were worried about who was saying who about what, instead of teaching our prize.
One last question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that there were a number of patches that were not resident chiefs. And you recognize the same missing patches here. Yeah. I'm sure the chiefs have the same issue we do as the Commissioners Association about grabbing those folks and getting them involved.
Yes.
Can you help me out with some names offline?
Yeah, I can outline. Yeah, I will say.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to have to do it on
On
camera.
this particular, I will say on this particular automatic gate issue and renumbering, anyone who did not show up to the meetings, this was 8 or 9 months ago now. Every chief got a phone call from either myself or Harold on the renumbering issue or the automatic gate issue to give them an update and let them know, hey, we're having an important meeting, be here for that. So every chief had the opportunity. We want to be sure. And on the big issues, we'll continue to do that. We understand some people are just busy, but Yeah.
Everybody's busy, we
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see you later on this week, we can,
Yeah, we got a couple meetings later in the week.
thanks,
Yes.
Chief.
Yeah, you bet.
So, like Jeff was saying, everybody who's here, their chiefs attend the meetings on a regular basis, so they're in the loop, but it's the ones outside the central core. So if you see a commissioner from another district and stuff, you might encourage them to, you know, get their chief to go, because it's kind of embarrassing, you know, when you go there and, you know, you got, you know, 8 or 10 chiefs there, and there's 27 of them in the city, or in the county, so, you know, it's not very well represented. Well, Jeff, on behalf of County Commissioners Association and stuff, present you with a certificate of appreciation for being the number 2 guy. And coming in and making presentations very well received.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for all your questions.